A biblical perspective on life, culture and current events. This is 2020 on Vision.
We're going to place a spotlight on the state of Victoria now because the Victorian Premier, Jacinta Allan, has given a green light for free pill testing. This sends a message to teenagers that it's okay to take illegal drugs as long as they've been tested. The Australian Christian Lobby State Director for Victoria, Yasmine Yuen, has said that this is not a good thing for the young people of Victoria. And Yasmine joins me now. Yasmine, welcome.
Thank you, Andrew. It's good to, thanks for having me here again.
Yeah, so tell me about this free pill testing.
Yeah, this pill testing, I would like to trace back to Dan Andrews' time. So the former Premier of Victoria, Dan Andrews, he has not been supporting this pill testing all along because he thinks that this is a dangerous, risky move to send a wrong message to the young people that it is safe to go. But interestingly, Jacinta Allan, as a new Premier, she just have a different direction and different decision. So last week, she came up in the social media and say, reflecting as a parent, I'm thinking of her own children. When they grow up, whether it's safe, for them to go to the music festival, what about taking drugs, and will they be safe to come home afterwards? Then because of that, she just make this decision that pill testing is the way to go. And what she said is that pill testing will save lives. But what I see that is wrong move. Well, this is the only thing perhaps I would like to agree with Dan Andrews. So pill testing is definitely dangerous, just sending a wrong message and a risky message to our young people that as long as that pill is tested and the authority say that it's safe, then you can take it. But it never is the case because recreational drugs, whichever there is, illicit drugs, is never safe to take.
Well, absolutely, because after you've taken that pill, you could drive a vehicle and cause an accident. You could make a moral choice, which you may regret for the rest of your life. Yeah, it's like you said, it's sending off a horrible message, and it sort of leads me to asking a broader question. Dan Andrews, from the rest of Australia, was always viewed as a very left-leaning leader, woke champion down there in Victoria. So what is the perception now of this new Premier, Jacinta Allan? Do you think she is very similar to Dan in that way, or is she even more left-wing and left-leaning than Dan Andrews even was?
Well, the impression that she gives us is that she is softer, more friendly, more transparent, perhaps better. But at the same time, when it comes to social issue, I don't think so. Like this is one of the things that you can see now. Pill testing is even softer than Andrew. So we don't know what she is going to bring up next. But recently, apart from pill testing, the government that is under her watch, they also bring up a new campaign called the Trans Awareness Inclusivity Campaign. So they put up a few videos on the social media to want to make Victorians not only to respect the trans community, but also to accept them, and also, just have to make all Victorians to become the LGBTIQ allies and friends of them. Well, to be honest, we have never been transphobic. We have never been homophobic. We have been labeled being bigotry. We never is, especially the Christian community. We are always, loving everybody is what Jesus is teaching us to do. But having that campaign on, it is labeling everybody that we are all bigots.
Yeah, so she's doing free pill testing for teenagers. She's doing a trans awareness campaign. I believe there's some movement on the Lord's Prayer in the Parliament as well. What's happening there?
Yeah, so the removal of the Lord's Prayer has been there for a long time. In Victoria, it's been going on for a few years. So back in 2021, Fiona Patton moved a motion to remove the prayer. At that time, under Dan Andrew, the Labour government said, no, we are not going to do anything, but we are going to workshop for something that is inclusive. If they form government or they win the election again in 2022, they are going to make a move to replace the Lord's Prayer. Now, until now, we don't have anything concrete coming from the Labour government. But in January this year, Jacinta Allan did say that she thinks that our community in Victoria has become very diverse now, culturally diverse and multicultural as well. So she thinks that it needs to be replaced with something inclusive. She announced that during, in January, but up until now, we haven't had any things that we see that the government is acting on it yet.
Yeah, and has the Australian Christian Lobby made any motions or sent any communication about the Lord's Prayer issue, just expressing the views of Christians in Victoria?
Yes, definitely. So we are quite active in the past couple of months, together with the Liberal National Party, as well as some of the faith leaders as well. So first off, there are 5 faith leaders coming from the Catholic, Anglican, Jewish, Hindus, and Muslim. So 5 faith leaders actually wrote a joint letter and sent it to Jacinta Allan and all the Victorian parliamentarians, asking them to keep the prayer in the parliament. And thereafter, there is an upper house e-petition. So it has been signed by more than 10,000 Victorians. So because of that, there will be the chance to debate this issue in the end of July, when the parliament resumes. And another thing is that we have been doing an email campaign as well, asking people to write to their state MPs as well as the Premier Jacinta Allan. And apart from that, we have also made videos with the Liberal National Party, 3 videos altogether, coming strongly to ask the Premier to keep the prayer in the Parliament. And it's really good to see John Pizzuto and other Liberal National Party MPs, Peter Walsh as well, to stand up strongly in the public on our social media through a video to say that they want to keep the prayer in the Parliament.
So can I just clarify, a Hindu and a Muslim faith leader have written a letter to the Premier saying keep the Lord's Prayer in the Parliament?
Yeah.
Well,
You find it interesting.
It's very interesting because it flies in the face of this whole, and I'm going to call it a lie, this lie of inclusivity, that we have to be so inclusive that we basically completely change our own culture, our own values, our own history. And well done to that Muslim leader and that Hindu leader who actually had the courage to write that letter to the Premier. So has the Premier yet responded to all of your communication regarding this issue?
No, not at all. And I forgot to mention, apart from all this, there are 100 pastor and parish priests also signed a joint letter to send it to Jacinta Allan as well. But unfortunately, no response, nothing from the Labour government as usual.
So as far as you're concerned, as the state leader of the Australian Christian Lobby, have you had any feedback from the Premier's office? Have you communicated to Premier Jacinta Allan on any other issues as well in the last few months?
Yes, in the last few months, yes, a couple of them, but never got a reply. Last year was a little bit better when she just taken over the role. She is a little bit more open. So last year when I reached out to the Minister for Health on euthanasia, she has been very helpful. The correspondence have been quick. And then when I brought up the transgender issue, the WPATH leak files, and then the CAS review report, then there is silence, complete silence from them.
And you sent that to the Premier's office, did you? You sent your concerns about the CAS report. And what was the other issue that you raised with the Premier's office?
There are some other education issue as well, indoctrination at school. I did bring it up with the Premier as well as the Minister for Health, who is also the Deputy Premier. So I had a meeting with one of his chief of staff last year, but this year nothing as well. So both the premier and the deputy premier has been silenced.
So the Australian Christian lobby, who obviously you express the views of the majority of Christians in Victoria, the state premier and the premier's office of the Victorian government is ignoring you and ignoring your concerns, which represent the concerns of thousands of believers all across your state.
Yeah, it's pretty common things for them to do. It's not only ignoring ACL, but other Christians community and organization as well. So that is pretty a common practice since the day of Dan Andrews. I'm not surprised about that. To be honest, they are more open to the Muslim community, unfortunately. And one of the reasons I see that is because they won their votes. And so Christian community really have to pay attention, especially in Victoria, is because if we don't voice out, as I know, a lot of Christians, they don't want to be too political or involved too much. But the problem is that if Christians keep silent, and we lose the voice in the parliament, and then we will allow other groups to take over, and then they will have more influence in the parliament. And we can see it already, not only in Australia, but also in the UK, how other groups are going to determine the election. So in the federal election, for example, coming up, the Muslim community might have a huge influence over some of the seats. Arise from the Hamas and Israel conflict.
Yeah.
So I would really have to tell Christians be more active in this political activism.
Well, an example of that in your state is I heard Wendy Francis say recently at the Chloe Cole evening in Brisbane that she got a Freedom of Information request granted, and I think there were 17 kids in Victoria aged between 3 and 6, correct me if I'm wrong, who've undergone the beginning of gender change therapy in your state. So your state is sanctioning gender change, starting with kids from 3 to 5. Obviously, they're not doing the full transition at that age, but they're starting the process. And this is an example, isn't it, Jacinta, where these left-leaning governments are driving through these agendas and this ideology, which is so damaging to kids. I mean, we interviewed Chloe Cole on Monday, and her story, I'll be honest with you, I heard it in the studio, I interviewed her. I was so sad, and then I had to go and listen to it again on Monday night. I almost had to walk out. It's just so dark. It's just so horrible what she went through, which was effectively a state-sanctioned sex change, which she now regrets, and she wishes it had never happened. And this is happening in your state as well, isn't it? And so, like you said, it's time for Christians to be the salt of the earth, to rise up in prayer and in action, like you said, and perhaps get more engaged politically and just believe God for better outcomes for your state.
Yeah, definitely. Action is always important. Without that, the government will just keep ignoring us, but we rely on Christians to speak up, pastor to speak up, then only we can see a change. And another thing is, it's not only speaking up, we have campaign running in Victoria at the moment to expose the indoctrination at school. If people are too afraid to speak up at this stage, just do the letterboxing and do the email. The signing the petition. There is always things that we can do. Just don't remain silent.
Yeah, well, if people want to tap into what the Australian Christian Lobby in Victoria are doing, and you're doing a great job, by the way, what should they do? What website or how do they get in touch with you, Yasmine?
Well, definitely go to acl.org.au. But for campaign on Victoria issues, you can go to the Take Action button, and then you will see different states. And click into Victoria, you will see the school campaign that is going on. You can go up and read a lot of resources that I have put in there. Is very important. What I hope is that through this school campaign is to raise awareness in the community, to help parents, whether they are Christian or not, to understand what is going on in the school. Is because I see that if we want to turn the tide, the gender tide, and stop children being referred to gender clinic, we really need to overhaul the education, the curriculum in Victoria, is because gender ideology has been, common in our school and culture as well. Until we stop that kind of gender indoctrination at school, children are just messed up or confused about their sexuality and their gender as well. And we need to put a stop in that.
Yeah, well, this ideology, it is, like you said, it's destructive. And the Bible says we should defend the weak. And there are kids out there right now that know no better. And if they're being indoctrinated and they're being influenced and they're vulnerable, they're at risk, perhaps they've suffered trauma or abuse already in life, they're more susceptible to make these choices. And you just got to listen to Chloe Cole. I mean, she's only 19, and at the age of 17, she had her breasts removed. She's now facing, she wants to be a mum one day, but she's facing the reality that her female body is no longer the way God made it. She can't breastfeed children one day. It was one of the darkest stories I've heard for a long time, Yasmine, and it just makes me horrified that there are kids in Australia and in your state of Victoria who potentially could go down the same path before they're old enough to vote, before they're old enough to legally buy alcohol, and before they're old enough to even legally drive a car. The governments of Australia are allowing kids to make life-altering choices for no other reason than to fulfill the wishes of some ideologue who's got this ideology which they think is good for everybody. It's just horrible. So, yeah, I just encourage everyone, if you're in Victoria, go to the acl.org.au website. That's acl.org.au website. Click on the button which says Take Action. Check out what's going on in Victoria. And for all of our fellow believers around Australia, pray for Victoria. Pray for that state that has produced so many great people. So much of Australia's history and culture is in Victoria. There's so many wonderful people groups down there that have migrated there. It's one of the most multicultural and beautiful cities in the world, and I mean that, in the world. But you guys need prayer, Yasmine, and we are praying for you that God would move in your state and that He would shake some of these institutions and shake some of these ideologies and shake some of these people out of office who, frankly, are not helping the kids and the young people and the at-risk vulnerable people in your wonderful state. But Yasmine, Yuen, I want to thank you so much for joining us on 2020 today.
Thank you, and
Thanks for taking time to listen to this audio on demand from Vision Christian Media. To find out more about us, go to vision.org.au.